A Nandroid's Dream, Chapter 7. With the first two stores not having the appliance they needed, her owner lowered their expectations, and the two hit up a few second-hand stores in the area to a different effect, but the same outcome. These shops weren't overpriced, but the quality was sorely lacking. Most units had significant dents and dings, and they were lucky to find one where everything worked as intended and had all the knobs and dials included. At the last few stores they stopped at, her owner had also checked for clothing that might fit her, but nothing promising was found. It was an unfortunate side effect of her design that she would need specially sized clothes, but after going through a few different carts and racks, she was happy not to be wearing anything she had seen. So the pair limped home, defeated in their search. It was getting late in the day, and her owner had work in the morning, so the search couldn't continue, but a plan of action was being hatched regardless. I'll check the paper the next few days. Maybe it'll have something for sale. Maybe some garage sales next weekend? Think you can make do for that long? Yes, of course. There was no way she was going to inconvenience them any more. She knew enough recipes to make it a year without needing an oven, let alone a week. If worse comes to worse, I'll just bite the bullet and buy one of those new ones. Can always buy that robotic one, he seemed friendly enough, her owner laughed. She didn't see the humor in it quite as much. The idea of having another robot in the house made her feel uneasy. But she gave a short, polite laugh and settled it in her mind that she wouldn't let that be the best option. She was going to remedy this situation in some way all on her own. She just had no clue how. She pushed the idea from her head as they arrived home and went inside, her to prepare dinner and her owner to further inspect the stove. It was going to be hard enough to see it every time she went into this room, but to have her owner there looking at it so intently just added insult to her injury. She wished they could go and relax and leave this all to her, somehow. Her owner went to search for the appliances manual, lost somewhere in a closet perhaps, but the search was unproductive before dinner finished. Nothing had gone as they had planned today, and it seemed to have really taken a toll now that they were home. Her owner ate sluggishly and slumped to one side as they ate their meal. It was a light conversation, prickly and tender. She could tell her owner was disappointed with how the day had turned out. She did her best to stay proactive and made them laugh a few times with some funny anecdotes, trying desperately to not let their mood bring her down as well, though she could feel it inside, trying to take her under as well. Her owner finished dinner and she gave them an early good night. She was starting to run dangerously low on battery as she hadn't recharged in almost 48 hours, so she left them to their own devices just this once and went back to her room to recharge. Enough from you. She shook the voice from her head as she walked down the hall, resolving to no longer listen to funny little voices giving terrible advice. She was trying to be better from now on, and that meant listening only to herself. It was easily the most normal night she'd had recently. There were only a handful of fanciful dream encounters, but mainly a clean recharge and normal backup all the way to the top, which took longer than normal due to her low battery status. But finally she clicked awake, fully charged and drenched in late morning sunlight. She unplugged and got up, peeking out of her room to confirm her owner had indeed left hours ago. This was it. Today was a fresh start for her. She was no longer going to be a burden. And step one was getting the house back into shape. What might have been seen as immaculate to others was not so to her Nandroid eyes. She began with a fine dusting of all surfaces, brushing away the light layer of dust that had begun to accumulate from the tops of the ceiling fans to the bottom of the baseboards, through every room and every nook and cranny she could find. Then there was the vacuuming, cleaning the windows and other glass objects of the house, rotating the pillows, scrubbing the sinks. She went through everything she could with a fervor and brought the house out of the state she had allowed it to fall back into and back to a sterling standard she could be proud of. And all the while she contemplated the stove. What could one do to remedy this situation without much money or any way to get a new stove home? She had been so sneaky, so underhanded before. Certainly she could put this evil little head of hers to some good use. But no matter how hard she tried, she wasn't able to think of a way to handle the situation, and so instead elected to find the perfect replacement herself to present to her owner. Once the house was spick and span, she retrieved the daily paper and sat at the kitchen table, going through it looking for any sale ads for appliances. But nothing looked promising. She sorely needed help. She had seen the neighbors a few times, but had only ever spoken a handful of words to them. But with very few ideas, she wondered if an unsolicited visit could elicit some help. But that would be unfair, moving the burden from her owner to someone else completely unrelated. So she moved her sights to a different section of the paper and looked at the garage sales, as her owner had suggested the night before. Most were far away, but there were two within the neighborhood. How she would pay or get the item home wasn't relevant to her right now. What mattered was at least finding the replacement. She went back to her room and changed into a clean uniform. It felt strange being in it now, but this was business, and she had to look the part. She noted the address of the 2 garage sales and left home, bound and determined to make something happen. She traveled through the busy streets, making her way to the closest stop first, with children playing all over and people out to enjoy the last day of the weekend. As she traveled, she began to make notes of people, how they looked, and more secretly, their hair. What would she look like if she had that person's ponytail, or that person's poofy locks? And what if she could change the color to whatever she wanted? These ideas helped occupy her half hour of strong walking to make it to the first stop, but she knew instantly to keep going just by looking at the sad state of the remaining goods. Whatever good items were here earlier were gone now, picked clean and leaving only a few barren tables occupied with an empty garage. So she pressed on to the next destination, dodging more traffic and yielding to pedestrians milling about the sidewalk. Her next arrival was much more promising, an estate sale. All of the house's internals had been laid bare for buyers on the lawn and driveway, and she could see some big bulky appliances near the back. Finally, a real lead. Whoever had lived here had been fairly well off, and a matching washer and dryer, along with a standing washer and dryer set, were on sale. What would they have ever needed 2 washers and dryers for, she couldn't have guessed, though she did let her attention sit on the stacked washer and dryer for just a bit, imagining how nice it would look in her laundry room. No, in her owner's laundry room, she corrected herself again. She checked around the sides next to these appliances, and there it was, a stove! But it wasn't the right color, painted a blinding white with a crack running across the glass surface. She had wondered if there had been another sitting next to this one in the now vacant spot, and lamented not checking the paper before cleaning. But there wasn't anything to do about it, so she left for home after looking through some clothes that were laid out on a table and deciding that none of them would ever fit her. The trudge home was slow, and she was no longer people-watching, instead letting the sad mood of having nothing to show for her search bring her down. She got home and slumped at the table, looking at the colorful origami bouquet and animals that had still adorned its center. What could she do? Who could she call for help? She was getting tired of running in circles in her mind, so she retrieved her origami book, hoping that one of the more advanced sections near the back would help take her mind off of this monumental task. She flipped it open, and the small bookmark she used to mark the pages fell to the table. But this wasn't a bookmark, it was a business card. She could barely remember having the business card included in their purchase from Rip, but excitement took hold. Certainly someone like Rip would be able to find her something. Hopefully the store was open at this hour of the weekend. She snatched the phone from the wall and punched in the number on the card and waited, twisting the cord around her fingers nervously. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Rip's Off Brands! It was Rip who answered, that much was clear from the intensity alone. She lowered the phone from her face ever so slightly to give her audio receptors a break. Hello, Rip. I had stopped in last week with my owner and had bought a few items. You that Nandybot? Yes, a Nandroid. I was hoping... glad to hear from you. Calling to tell me how happy you were with your purchases? Rip laughed loud enough at his own joke she wondered if she could have hung up and still heard him all the way from Makina Beach. Well, yes, thank you. The outfit is wonderful and fits very well. But I was hoping you would be able to tell me if you carry some repair items for appliances. Like a shark who detected fresh blood, Rip changed immediately, taking on a serious and aggressive tone. Well, I most certainly do. What's the brand? She recited the brand and model of the stove and explained in short order the issue and that she needed a new door. Rip hummed and hawed for a moment and put her on hold. He truly was a strange fellow, but nice nonetheless. He returned to the line to give her a price, which was met with a shocked silence. Rip knew the game and was instantly worried. He knew how to play, but apparently she didn't, as his offer was declined with a quick response. No thank you, goodbye. Wait! Now hold on there. If there's one thing Rips Off Brands is known for, it's deals, and I always, and I mean always, do right by the people who have done right by me, so let's talk for a minute and see if we can't find some middle ground. She wasn't used to having to haggle for things, but she knew a bad deal when she heard one. I can't accept anything nearly that expensive. I could get a new unit for that price. I understand, and that's why that's the contractor price. I apologize. Looks like I misread, and it's actually much cheaper. And so the dance began, with Rip offering a better deal that was still much too expensive. Slowly the price was whittled down lower and lower, until finally a respectable price had been reached. If Rip wanted the sale at all, he'd have to agree, which he did. But the Nandroid still wasn't sure and hesitated. Whereabouts are you anyway? She gave him the city, and Rip cried out in excitement. Well, lucky you, I make deliveries there every 2 weeks for a little shop, and it's coming up. If you take it now, I'll throw in free delivery, bring it right up to your doorstep. At the price he was offering, and free delivery, she couldn't let this chance get away. It was all working out too perfectly. I think that will work just fine. It may have been seen as improper, making this deal now without her owner's consent, but it was too good to pass up, and required so little from them besides payment, which they were going to be doing anyway. Great, see, I knew there was a reason you were my favorite customers, and that's it right there, pragmatic and smart and not just a bit too cute, if I might add. She'd never been the victim of such a smooth talker, but Rip seemed harmless enough, so she let it slide with a small grin. Thank you, Rip. No, thank you. So let me tie some things up on my end and I'll give you a call in a day or two and we'll get it all scheduled for this next week. Yes, that will work fine. But I did have one other question. Do you carry any wigs? She finally felt useful again, and when her owner came home that night, she happily reported on what she had been able to do and the cost. Her owner was taken aback, surprised at the gumption his once timid and quiet Nandroid was showing. Whatever was happening to her, she really was a different person. But they praised her for her good work and complimented how nice the house looked today, noting the joy it seemed to fill her with. As she'd been told, Rip had called a few days later to let her know the part had been bought and they set a time for delivery, the very next day in fact. She was sure to ask for the latest possible delivery, which happily coincided with her owner arriving home. In the end, it had worked out, as things always seemed to do for her. This week had gone very well for her indeed. She was doing her best to hold it together when her owner wasn't around, and so far it had been working. Most of the time. She still had episodes where she couldn't resist snuggling herself into their bed and shirking real work, and the chores were now taking longer and becoming a pain to keep up with again. But she was holding steady at it and was trying to be better. It was all for her owner's benefit. Bright and early the morning of the delivery, she had gotten up and made breakfast, her owner on time to have a quick meal with a swift goodbye, and it was back to the daily chores which she was now splitting up into rotating shifts instead of the same routine every day. It was shortly after her owner had left as she was busy cleaning at the back of the house that she heard a knock at the front door. She dusted her hands and hurried to the door to greet the unexpected guest. She opened the door and was surprised to find Rip. Well, hello there, little missy, so glad you're home. I know I'm a little early, but time is money, as they say, and the delivery got done sooner than expected. Rip reached out and grabbed her hand as he spoke, giving it a mighty shake. He was much too early. Rip took a step forward and she stood her ground, his attempted entry bringing her back to her senses. Mr. Cordelio, the scheduled delivery— Oh, I know, but I was in the neighborhood and can't spend all day here, so I thought I'd stop by and drop it off now, and please call me Rip. I must insist that you come back at the specified time. My owner isn't home right now. Is that what this is about? Well, don't you worry, little lady. I can be in and out in a jiffy. I can get this part installed in no time and you'll be golden. His interruptions were rude and annoying, but she weighed her options. Let this fast-talking, smooth operator in and surprise her owner with the problem completely taken care of when they returned home, or turn him away and not risk letting a strange robot in their house. The choice seemed obvious. She led Rip to the kitchen and showed him the damage. He let out a long, electronically simulated whistle upon seeing the shattered door. No fixin' that. What'd they do, try cooking for you for once? Rip's laugh echoed in the kitchen and shook the plates and windows. Or so it felt like. She wondered to herself what his original purpose was and settled on the idea of a megaphone. No, I broke it. I'm afraid I don't know what needs to be done to have it removed, though. Not a problem, my dear. Let old Rip take a gander. He knelt down on the floor and swung open the stove door, examining the hinges and requested a few simple hand tools, which she retrieved from the kitchen junk drawer. Rip asked her for help bringing the new door inside, and she followed him out to the box truck parked in the driveway, branded with Rip's smiling visage. As the two retrieved the wrapped-up parcel, Rip began telling her about his time as a handyman, or rather, hand-e-man. Before moving to Makina and starting his business, he had done a lengthy tenure as a jack-of-all-trades. Him and other older robots that were still fit for work traveling to various areas around the country and performing odd jobs that might require a robotic touch. He'd installed several appliances a week for many years and had to troubleshoot all kinds of broken machinery. As the story went on, Rip calmed down and no longer spoke at an 11, even using actual pauses and periods. So how did you come to stay in Makina Beach? She asked, as they carefully maneuvered the purchase through the front door. Me and some of the boys came south after spending a few months too far north. Terrible weather up there. Ah, but sunny Makina, that was paradise. But it's mainly a tourist spot, so the work dried up pretty quick. Then was just sitting on the beach one day and I saw some human selling frisbees and sunscreen from a cart. Just a little setup, real cheap. I gave him $50 and cleaned out his stock and just walked down the beach selling the stuff. End of the day, I had a pretty penny and I realized it was easier selling things to humans than doing jobs for them. They laid the new door on the table and Rip returned to the stove and began removing screws, handing them over to his little Nandroid helper. And how on earth did you come to own a business? While her owner was very special with how they treated her, she knew robots' larger roles in society and had been wondering this question since her initial visit. I won't pretend to know the details. Worked it out with a human buddy of mine. Technically, he owns the store and pays the taxes. I just run the place and do everything, including keeping the profit. She didn't know why this surprised her. After all, her human was someone very special. It only seemed natural to assume there were others like them in the world. Humans can be very surprising sometimes, she added decisively. After a few loosened screws and a helping hand to get the old part out of the way, the job was done. The new door was attached and swung freely, seating itself perfectly closed, meaning no damage had been done to the frame of the unit. How lucky she always seemed to be. Rip took the broken door out and threw it into the trash, making another stop at his box truck and returning with a hefty cardboard box and an excited smile. Now let's do the fun part. Rip produced a small mirror from the box and placed it on the table as she took a seat in front of it, like she was in a salon, as Rip shuffled into the box once more. She reached up to her head and into her hair, deftly undoing the mechanics that kept her wig attached to her head, removing her hair and laying it on the table. She'd only ever seen herself like this a couple of times, once in Nandroid school and once during a routine checkup. She didn't have any qualms about being bald like humans did. She felt it was an interesting look, but knew her owner most likely wouldn't agree. Rip popped up from the box and slid on the first wig. He really was magic at finding the right items. This wig fit perfectly despite not being made for a Sterling unit. It was a nice short bob cut, but the color left a lot to be desired, falling squarely into the zone of what she could only describe as pea mush, a sickly off-green. Who would have ever bought this? Rip took it off and put on the next, but she wasn't feeling this one either. While she knew that retro was in, this windswept bushy brown look was several decades too old. She turned down an ultra-long, elegant blonde wig for being too impractical for her everyday duties, and a super short buzz-cut blue for being too trendy for her tastes. Rip produced another wig and set it atop her head, a deep burgundy with straight bangs and wisps of hair laying to and fro. It framed her face perfectly, with the tips coming to rest just above her shoulders. There was something special about this, they could both tell. Rip was silent as she looked to the left, to the right, back to the left, flicking her hair and watching how it fell against her face. This looked good. Very good on her, and it just felt right. This was it. This was the one. If I might be so bold, I'd say this suits you perfectly, Rip complimented quietly, tousling the hair from behind and splaying the ends wide so the natural shape of the wig returned. Thank you. It was an odd feeling seeing oneself in such a different, vibrant manner, just like the night she had gotten her new clothes. Rip offered some additional wigs for backup, but she declined. This one was perfect, and she didn't want to make it a habit of changing her hair every day. Rip began packing up his supplies and prepared to take his leave as the conversation turned to payment. The agreement was her owner would pay after the successful delivery, but with them at work, Rip had to settle for a phone call later that day for credit card details. The two squabbled over the wig as Rip tried to pry every last penny he could out of its worth. Rip's old tone was back as he was in full salesman mode. Little lady, the moment your owner comes home and sees the quality and style I've left you with, the price won't matter. They wanted a new look for you, and by golly, you'll be the talk of the town just like they wanted. She almost held her tongue, leaving Rip with the impression that she was changing her look because she was instructed to, but it seemed in bad taste to let him carry on with this baseless assumption of her owner. They didn't ask I do this. This is something I'm doing for myself. Not entirely untrue, but it was certainly none of his business. Rip's mask melted away, and his voice went back to a normal speaking tone at this revelation. What do you mean? They don't know I'm changing my hair. She felt a small twinge of fear at this next bout of silence. As Rip stared, she wondered if she had said too much. She didn't know him beyond being a loud salesman. What if he didn't agree with something she said, with how her owner treated her? Are they going to be all right with it? Yes, I should think so. And they let you buy your own clothes? No, that was their suggestion, she said, hoping to ease whatever Rip was feeling. He gave a quick sigh and a smile spread across his face. No lie. Of course I'm not lying. What a strange thing to imply. Rip moved in closer and whispered despite them being alone in the house. Do they treat you right? She could feel her cheeks light up at this question. How inconsiderate and rude. Just what did Rip mean? Mr. Cordelio, that's certainly none of your business. She didn't mean to sound as indignant as she did, but this line of questioning was completely unprovoked. The smile Rip wore slowly curled sly as he finally understood what was going on. Ah, I see. I get it now. If she thought he came off as a little arrogant before. What? she stuttered, doing her best to hold her proud sterling look. "Oh, nothing, my dear," he said, tapping the side of his nose. "And this wig is all for you?" She could feel her cheeks brightening even more and cursed whatever technician had made them be able to blush, but held her tough frown. Rip looked away for a moment, deep in thought, before heaving a big sigh and grabbing the box of wigs. "Have your owner call me tonight. We'll get the stove squared away then. The wig's free." This caught her completely off guard, given the performance Rip was putting up just a moment ago. "I beg your pardon?" She stole a glimpse at the inner struggle on Rip's face, as he did his best to hide it. "I said the wig's yours, you can have it, but you have to do me a favor." All right," she agreed, completely lost as to what she could do for Rip that he would possibly value higher than money. "You have to tell him." Now, no games with me. I've been around too long, and I've seen lots of good people and good bots lose out on too much because they're indecisive. If you have something to say to them, you say it, clear as day, because humans can miss the little things. If you promise me that, you can have the wig for free. Now shake on it." He extended one hand towards her, giving the most serious look she had ever seen pass across his face. Tell her owner how she felt? That had almost happened a few times already, but he was wanting her to do it on purpose? Going once. He started to pull his hand away, and hers shot out to meet his in a firm but friendly shake. I will, I promise." Rip turned to his old self and animatedly tossed her hand up and down before releasing it and began heading to his vehicle. As she escorted him, he mused on how advanced robots had gotten in his life and how Nandroids were really something else. "Every time I see them come into my store, they bring new surprises." "Do you get many Nandroids?" She couldn't imagine Nandroids would make it into a shop like Rip's on their own accord. "Oh, not many, but I have my regulars. 2 nanny bots that work at the local theme parks stop in from time to time, and they are a treat, let me tell you." Rip regaled her with some stories about the 2 Nandroids. They sounded like a wonderful pair and quite amusing too. Maybe all Nandroids had something that made them special like this. Something unique and amazing that others would love to find out about. With Rip finally loaded, he checked the time and commented on his being late, and so bid her farewell and good luck, with a big wink. She waved goodbye as Rip pulled out onto the road and drove out of sight, and she returned inside to prepare for tonight. One thing was for sure. Tonight was going to be special. She hadn't really ever considered telling her owner how she felt. It was impossible. There was no way she could. But she did want to, secretly, and she had just made a promise to Rip. She took her old wig from the table and stored it in her room, checking herself in the mirror as she did so. She looked so different now. She felt so different now. She truly could no longer be the same Nandroid that had graduated just a few months ago and had been excited to live a boring life of dusting and mopping and listening to a human have a happy life. She had her own life now, her own needs and desires. Why shouldn't she act on them and make herself and her owner happy? She had cast so much of her old self off. She didn't act the same. She didn't look the same. What about her name? Wasn't it just a shackle of the past, something to remind her of how she was supposed to behave and what she was supposed to do? She thought long and hard on this as she stared at the rose bouquet her owner had picked for her on their walk. She hadn't started dinner yet. She was actively putting it off, instead waiting for her owner in the living room. It was almost time for them to arrive home, and she was growing more and more nervous. She held her hands tight to her chest, twisting the fabric so hard she risked tearing a hole in her shirt. She couldn't help it. Second thoughts and doubts had started popping up. What if they didn't like the change? What if they wanted her back to her old self? What if they didn't feel the same way about her as she did about them? Through all the frantic fraying she threatened her shirt with, the time finally came. She could hear their car arriving down the driveway. She stood straight up in the middle of the room and forced her arms to her sides, waiting for them and leaving a big crease in her shirt. The car came to a stop and the engine went quiet. Her readings were going haywire. She was overheating and panicking. The keys were being jiggled in the lock. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The front door opened and her owner announced their arrival. She tried to respond but couldn't speak. Something was wrong with her. They called again as she heard them taking off their shoes and dropping their bags as the door closed behind them. She finally forced herself to speak, sounding funny and strained. "I'm here. Rip's gonna be on his..." They stopped dead after just entering the living room, seeing their Nandroid standing with a brand new head of hair. It was a quiet showdown, the silence deafening to her. Her owner opened their mouth but didn't say anything. It was up to her to break the silence, so she forced another utterance. "Hi." This simple act broke her owner's trance. "Hi." They blinked heavily and gave their head a slight shake, making their way over to the Nandroid. What happened? Rip came by early. We already installed the stove door. She felt like she was on autopilot. Cool, but what about you? You got this from Rip? They reached over and touched her hair, their hands softly brushing against her face, making her legs weak. Yes. They slowly turned her head left and right, looking her over from all angles. They were very close and staring at her so intently. She liked this feeling very much. After looking her face all over, they responded excitedly. Wow, it looks really good on you. She didn't know Nandroids could faint, but at hearing this, she instantly relaxed and could feel her legs give way. She stumbled forward and fell against her owner, who grabbed her in surprise. Whoa, hey, what's wrong? They sounded so worried. They were holding her so tight. They liked how she looked. She was so happy she could barely form a sentence. She tried to speak again, but instead mumbled something incoherent before laughing. Her owner's worry went away as she giggled to herself, and they joined in, laughing at their funny little Nandroid. At least you're in high spirits. I mean it, you look great. It looks beautiful on you. Hearing them say that cut her laughter short. She looked up to them, their face glowing from her bright cheeks. The two looked into each other's eyes, and the promise she made to Rip bubbled up. Now could be the time. She could just say it now, tell them how she felt. But she couldn't speak. She couldn't say anything, and when she tried, it was just unintelligible babble. Why did she have to be acting like this now? The moment passed swiftly, and her owner lifted her back onto her feet and gently let her go. Did you pick it out? Yes, she was able to get out. Taking some space from them was helping bring her back to normal, though she still felt giddy from their compliments and looks. Well, good job. I wondered if that was you when I walked in for a second. Kinda shocked me, they laughed, causing her to go into another fit of giggles. And the door got replaced? Yes, she affirmed as her owner went into the kitchen with her fast on their heels. They went to the stove and tested the new part, content to open and close it just once. Well, I'd say that works then. Did you pay him before he left? She was calming down now and was able to speak more clearly. No, he asked that you gave him a call when you got home for a phone payment. You got the number? She retrieved Rip's card from the table and handed it over as her owner went to the phone and called him up. She could hear Rip answer the phone, and saw her owner wince after they introduced themselves, Rip's voice echoing through the receiver as loudly as if he was there. Yeah, hi, so was just calling to get you paid. Uh-huh. Yeah, works great. Yeah, sure. Right. Oh yes, believe me, I know. Okay. And what... Yeah, and what was the total? Okay, and what's that? This conversation was turning strange. She inched closer, trying to hear Rip clearly. Really? And you're going to take off $100 if I do? Her owner cast her a weird glance, and she bounced back. What was Rip saying? Maybe he wasn't as nice as she had thought. I guess, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, deal. Of course. Yeah, sounds good. Tonight. Yes, I mean it. I'll hang up and go. Yes. Yes, look, do you want to get paid or not? She could only guess what was happening on the phone, but after providing their card details and confirming with Rip, again, that they would do this mystery task, they finally said goodbye and hung up. The moment the receiver was down, she jumped in, worried that Rip had said something very, very stupid to her owner without her consent. What happened? What did Rip say? Well, he said I have a lovely home and said you were a real treat to be around and I was lucky to have you and told me he'd give me $100 off if I went out somewhere fun tonight and took you with me. She wondered if there was a limit to the number of times she could blush and was worried that her cheeks may burn out before too long, but there wasn't much she could do about it since she couldn't seem to control herself. Did he say anything else? She asked nonchalantly, trying to prod gently so as not to arouse suspicion. Yeah, a whole lot, they said with a roll of their eyes. If Rip had said something he shouldn't have, her owner hadn't caught it. It seemed Rip really was a good guy at heart, if just a tad too loud. Works for me, though. Want to go somewhere? Doesn't look like you've started dinner yet. Go where? Well, not sure yet, but a deal's a deal. Tonight's on Rip. Wait, she called, making her owner come to a halt and face her. It was just the two of them. Nothing to bother them, nothing to stop her. But still, right now just didn't seem like the right time. But she was ready for her introduction. I want a new name. Her owner seemed to have expected this and slowly moved towards her. Okay, did you have anything in mind? They were speaking softly, but seriously. They understood how important this was to her. She gave a decisive nod and introduced her new self. Rose. Rose, her owner repeated, trying out the name and sending a shiver down her spine. I think that's beautiful. Any reason in particular? I just like roses. Rose, they whispered with a big grin, walking over to her and putting an arm around her shoulders. Rosie. Wait, no, not Rosie. Her old name was diminutive enough with the Y ending. She wanted something more formal, something much more official sounding. But when her owner gave her shoulder a squeeze, oh well, Rosie was fine. Closing her eyes was the only thing she could do to keep herself together as she placed her hand on theirs and the two left home ready for a fun night. Whatever had happened up to this point was now in the past. From now on, Rosie was going to be better.